Welcome to this special Ask Me Anything session with Dr. Monica Gulati, Head of Faculty of Applied Medical Sciences, Lovely Professional University. Let's dive into Ask Me Anything session. Want to influence the future of healthcare, recession proof careers. So, now I would like to introduce Dr. Monica Gulati. She brings over 30 years of expertise in teaching, research, and administration with the 250 plus publications, 6 patents, and more. She is a respected leader in pharmaceutical research and innovation. So now I would like to introduce Mr. Gurinder Singh. He is the head of the Department for Medical Laboratory Sciences at the School of Allied Medical Sciences, Lovely Professional University. With his expertise and leadership, he plays a pivotal role in shaping the future of healthcare professionals. So now I would like to introduce Dr. Suresh Mani also in this webinar. He is the Deputy Dean and Head of Physiotherapy at Lovely Professional University. With over 20 years of experience, he has 30 Scopus and WS indexed publications and more. Before we proceed further in today's Ask Me Anything session, I would like to request everyone for any questions. You can write in the comment box, and ma'am will take the questions by her own, or I will address the questions to her. So now I'm going to hand over this session to our experts. Dr. Monica Gulati, Mr. Gurinder Singh, and Dr. Suresh Mani, and it would be an absolute delight to listen from them. Over to you all.
Thank you, Dalvinder. So we all three of us are here to answer any questions from any children who are interested in healthcare careers.
You just write your questions in the comment box, and ma'am will take the questions. Our experts, Dr. Suresh Mani and Mr. Gurinder Singh, is also with us. So, ma'am, we have one question, first question with us. Thanks for giving me chance to address your questions to our experts. Gurpreet is asking here, what are the most promising career paths in pharmacy that are considered recession proof?
See, Gurpreet, as far as pharmacy is concerned, or in fact, as far as all the medical career options are concerned, each career option is recession proof. Now, if you ask me why so, because one thing is, AI may develop to any extent. Uh, the kind of medical intervention which is required cannot be done without the help of healthcare support system. So we need people. Another thing is, with time the lifespans are becoming longer. People are living to a much longer age. Earlier it used to be early 40s, 50s, 60s. Now the average lifespan has also increased, and we have more geriatric people. Geriatric means the more elderly people around, and therefore we need more medical care for them. So it is going to continue. There is not going to be any kind of recession. Third thing is, after COVID, we all understand, we all realize that the health problems have increased, and another thing is people have become more aware also. They have become more health conscious, so health is now a priority, and we have so many supplements coming up. All the people want to stay healthy, so all the career options in all the medical sciences are there to stay. So each and every career option is going to be recession proof. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you so much, Dr. Monica Gulati. I hope, Gurpreet, you got your answer from our expert, Dr. Monica Gulati. Dilpreet is asking here, how is the role of a pharmacist evolving with advancements in AI and digital health?
All right, now you see, when AI and digital health is coming up, We have a lot of data, we have a lot of smart data, we have a lot of big data, out of which you need to draw certain conclusions. So that is one part where pharmacovigilance has come up. We take all the data and make some sensible conclusions out of it, and most of the time the conclusions are there which are very plausible, but they need to be verified, so we do need the expertise also. So suddenly there has been a shift from I would say practical kind of or experimental kind of healthcare to more data based kind of healthcare. But again, since it requires the wisdom of people, alone data would be, any conclusions drawn from the data alone without the input from human wisdom would be of no use.
Thank you so
That's
much, Dr. Monica Gulati. I hope, Dilpreet, you got your answer from our expert. So now Radhika is with us. Radhika is asking here, what skills beyond academics should a pharmacy student develop to stay competitive in the job market?
all right. You see, when we talk of medical sciences or we talk of allied medical sciences, every day there is a new development. So one thing is you need to keep yourself abreast with the all the advancements which are going on in this area. Second thing is, as far as the medical, allied medical sciences are concerned, labs are the lifeline. Practical component is the lifeline. With theory, you cannot survive. So I always tell the students to focus more on the practical trainings, to focus more on the lab trainings, to understand the methodology. If you don't know the theory, it is still pardonable, but you have to have a very strong grip on your practical hand, on your experimental hand, on your clinical hand. So that is one of the most important kind of thing. And another thing is, these days, it is, since it is so diversified, if you are handling the public, if you are into careers like community pharmacy in physiotherapy treatment, you are handling the patients, you need to be very communicative. So communication skills is another part. If you are an introvert, even that is fine, but then you need to be in the lab, you need to be in the research lab, you need to be in the data centers, you need to be in the pharmacovigilance, you need to be in the coding business where the interaction with the general public is less. So wherever you are, you need to have specialized skills, and you need to keep yourself aware of the latest developments in the field all the time.
Thank you so much, Dr. Monica Gulati. Someone is asking here, can you suggest emerging fields within pharmacy that students should explore, like regulatory affairs?
Mhm. So, you see, regulatory affairs has been there since a long time, but it is changing since many of the Indian companies are now going for US FDA approvals. So, rather than only focusing on their business in India, they are also focusing now on the business in US, which is the most proliferative market for any kind of drugs or medical devices. So, regulatory affairs phase has changed. Other upcoming career paths in pharmacy, one very important path is pharmacovigilance, which, as I shared with you a little earlier also, wherein you compile the data, you decipher the the market trends, you can suggest the uh, companies in which direction to go. Data analytics would be one thing. Pharmacovigilance will be when you will be looking at the uh, side effects or adverse effects reported for any device, reported for any medicine across the world, and then come up with the solutions for that, remedies for that. Data analytics or clinical data analytics is another emerging area. As I shared with you, a lot of data is being generated, but you have to make some sense out of it. So these are some of the emerging fields which are very paying also. You get very fat. pay packages in these lines.
Thank you so much, Dr. Monica Gulati. You just write your questions in the comment box. Our experts, Dr. Monica Gulati, Dr. Suresh Mani, and Mr. Gurinder Singh, all are experts with us. Can we take the next questions, Dr. Monica Gulati?
Uh, the next question I can see here in the chat box is comment section is what's the future of healthcare sector? I think this is it.
Yes, yes, ma'am. You can take
So
this
I think
question.
Dr. Suresh Mani, you can handle that.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for this question. I think future of healthcare system sector, it's very wide open. Why? Because a lot of technology enabled society we are in. So the technology components integrated with it in the healthcare system will add more kind of um, associated in the field of physiotherapy as well as other medical system. Particularly when you talk about physiotherapy, I think if you see the life expectancy, it's increased as compared with the 40, 50 years back. So the transition in terms of demographic, the people are living longer. So the healthcare system in terms of geriatric physiotherapy, geriatric care, it is expanding day by day, and also integration of technology along with the physiotherapy and other healthcare system is emerging. Yeah. And also now the delivery of the services, particularly in physiotherapy, they use technology to deliver. For example, we deliver physiotherapy services somebody is sitting in US or somewhere or in a remote region through tele rehabilitations. So that is one of the area where the future of healthcare sector is there. And also there is a diagnostic aspect when you talk about those days the patient has to come to the clinic or to the hospital for the diagnosis, but we have a technologies coming up where they can sitting at home through the sensor as a thing they can able to assess their physical conditions, even the other conditions such as diabetic, those things can be evaluated through that. So this some of the common future of healthcare sector in India and around the globe.
I would also like to add that if we talk of the future of healthcare sector across the world, the people are becoming more aware of the importance of food and herbal technology. People are also becoming very aware of the early diagnosis of diseases. So all this, if early diagnosis is required, I still remember there never used to be full packages of diagnostics available. The people would go for the entire checkup, the entire range of biochemical tests, the entire range of uh, uh, the radiology and everything. So this kind of awareness was never there across the world. With in the coming time, the awareness is only going to increase, and the kind of foods that this younger generation is consuming, the pathologies are going to increase only. So I feel that in the coming few decades, you can say up to at least 100 years, the healthcare business is going to go up and up only. So the future of healthcare is very bright. It has, in fact, when there have been certain periods of recession across the globe, the health sector has never been touched by the recession. That has been proven by the history. So I think we can depend upon the healthcare careers in the coming times also. So that's it.
Thank you so much, Dr. Monica Gulati, and our experts, Dr. Suresh Mani and Mr. Gurinder Singh. Ma'am, someone is asking here, what are the advantages of pursuing clinical pharmacy versus industrial pharmacy in today's scenario?
You see, when we talk of clinical pharmacy or industrial pharmacy, there is a very strong dichotomy. Initially, in India, clinical pharmacy was practically absent. It was purely and purely being taken care of by the physicians. Now, with the advent of time and looking at our Western counterparts, we have seen an emergence of clinical pharmacy with the careers in pharmacy practice going up, being in great demand. So industrial pharmacy mainly focuses on the production, the quality control, the quality assurance, the sales, the marketing, and even the research in the formulation part. How are the drugs made? How are the raw drugs prepared? How are they formulated into various dosage forms like tablets, capsules, injections, aerosols? When we talk of clinical pharmacy, you are mainly focused on the patient group. It could be starting from the clinical trials, or rather, I would say it would be culminating in the clinical trials. You work on the patients, you counsel the patients. The doctors do not have that much time to counsel the patients, and at times, there are certain areas where pharmacists are more qualified, they are more aware about the side effects, the precautions to be taken, the timing of the dosing, the what is to be taken along with the dosing, what is not to be taken along with the dosing. So this all comes under the, so the the people who were more interested in becoming doctors, who have this passion, who had this dream of entering into the medical profession, clinical pharmacy is ideal for them. For the rest of the people, industrial pharmacy would be good. There's a very strong dichotomy between the two of them.
Thank you so much, ma'am. I hope, dear, you got your answer from our expert, Dr. Monica Gulati. Can we take the next question, ma'am? And
Sure.
Dr. Suresh Mani, Mr. Gurinder Singh are also with us. You just write your questions in the comment box, or I'll address to our experts. Someone is asking here, how can pharmacy graduates contribute to global healthcare challenges such as antimicrobial resistance or chronic disease management?
Yeah, so here, of course, my colleagues will also be able to give their input. I would start with the fact that when we talk of antimicrobial resistance, India is the hub for herbal drugs. Now, herbal drugs have never shown any kind of resistance as far as their antimicrobial effect is concerned. So, depending solely on the herbal components or combining a herbal component along with any already existing antimicrobial agent would be of great benefit in overcoming this global problem of antimicrobial resistance. And as far as the lifestyle diseases are concerned, or the chronic diseases are concerned, therein early diagnosis that can be shared by Mr. Gurinder, and of course the lifestyle modifications which can be shared by Dr. Suresh Mani, can be of a great help. So over to you, Mr. Gurinder and Dr. Suresh Mani.
Yes. So I would like to add, in developing country, antimicrobial resistance is, increasing because of unnecessary use of antibiotics. So the treatment that create a challenge for pharmaceutical industry to treat the patient which are infected with resistant microorganisms. So example, and now new emerging microbial disease are coming, in upcoming time. So example we have is COVID-19, right? So there is a challenge in diagnostic field or in a healthcare sector to treat the patient, to diagnose the patient as soon as possible. In early diagnosis, if we do the early diagnosis of the patient, so it's a possible to treat the patient on time. For that, there would be a challenge to create new techniques, molecular techniques to diagnose early the patient for appropriate treatment.
So I would like to add one more point here in terms of non-communicable disorder. I think being a physiotherapist actually had more have a major role to play in managing, not only managing, even prevention, because as we know the physical activity one of the key for preventing or managing those non-communicable disorders. Particularly, India is a hub for non-communicable disorder, particularly the diabetic mellitus. It's a very high prevalent in India. So the role of allied medical science, including the physiotherapies, have a major role to play to prevent those, those disorders through, increasing their physical activity and also to modify their, the lifestyle. And secondly, when they got the like a cancer or the diabetes, so the exercise based intervention is the key, along with the oral medications for managing their glucose level or preventing or managing those conditions. In addition to this, physiotherapists also play a major role, in treating those hand and foot deformities if they have any complication out of non-communicable disorders. Recently, we also working on certain projects on cancer, how the physiotherapy exercises can improve the outcome of cancer complications when they undergo chemotherapy. So, as we said, as a whole, Allied Medical Society, have a major role to work on, non-communicable disorders in India as well as at the global platform. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Suresh Mani and Mr. Gurinder Singh. And once again, thanks to our expert, Dr. Monica Gulati, also. Bhavan Preet is asking here, how does international certification or licensing like FPGEE or PEBC impact the career prospects of Indian pharmacy graduates?
So here I would like to share, it is a very good question. When you are preparing or when you are clearing the exams of entering the pharmacy profession, either in Canada and US, both of them, they pertain to Canada and US. In fact, apart from these two, there are different exams for Australia and for New Zealand also. And of course, they'll be aware that in case they are going to appear for PG in India, they are going to appear for GPAT. So these exams prepare you to enter into the international scenario. So Indian students who are fond of or who aspire to settle abroad, these are the passports. These, clearing these exams would be passports. So what generally we do is we take the preferences from the students and we ask them if they plan to go to Canada or they want to go to Australia or whichever country, and or they want to stay back in India. So accordingly, we divide the students for their preparatory classes in which we give them uh, training for appearing in these exams. So more or less for Canada and US exam, it is quite similar. The contents are quite similar, so they are put in one batch. The other countries, generally, we put them in another batch, and the children who want to go for higher education in India only, we have a separate batch for GPAT. So this basically opens the doors for settling abroad in whichever country they want to. For UK, it is still different. So if there are any students like 5, 6 are there currently in this current batch, we prepare them for the UK exam.
Thank you so much, Dr. Monica Gulati. Bhavanpreet, I hope you got your answer from our expert. Kumar Anshu is with us. He is asking what skills are important for a career in the pharmaceutical industry.
All right, Kumar, Anshu, there, when we talk of a career in pharmaceutical industry, as I shared with the audience earlier also, the most important thing is your very strong grip on the practical skills. If you are in manufacturing or QC, QA, R&D, you need to have a very strong grip on the technical part. If you are in the sales or marketing, which is again a part of pharma industry, you need to have a very intricate knowledge about the pricing structure, about the brands of the competitors, advantages of your brands, to some extent the pharmacoeconomic part also. Uh, then the new industry aspects which I shared earlier also, like we are coming up with data analytics, then you need to have some good grip on the stats part. On the statistics, you should be a little aware about how to handle the Excel files, how to go for the statistical treatments, and some analytical skills are required. So I think it would slightly vary from one to the next. I mean, different aspects will require different kind of skill sets, but they all point towards the practical knowledge rather than theoretical knowledge.
Thank you so much, Dr. Monica
Next
Gulati.
question he is asking is, I
Yeah.
think, Indian pharmacy students abroad. So the opportunities are huge. Uh, I came to know recently, one of my our alumna who's settled in Canada, she came and she told me, ma'am, there is a queue of almost 23 days for meeting a pharmacist, and for meeting a physician it is almost of 13 days. So you can understand, I think, by this that the pharmacists are very much in demand. In fact, in India still the physicians are handling most of the clinical pharmacy part also. In our western counterparts it is not so. The major part of patient counseling, the major part of drug dosage regimen, explaining it and even deciding it falls on the shoulders of the pharmacist. So, as far as the Western world is concerned, you'll be very happy to know that the opportunities are immense. One thing, even if you talk of African countries, since I have some of the children from African countries, there, they tell me that the healthcare is not so good, not as good as India, and they are still developing. So there also there is a huge scope for pharmacy. So I think that answers your question.
I hope, Kumar Anshu, you got your answer from our expert, Dr. Monica Gulati. Dr. MVNLC is with us, ma'am. He's asking, what is the future of AI-based drug discovery and development, and how can collaboration between academia and industry be beneficial?
Okay, I will divide your question into two parts. First, I'll answer the first one. The future of AI based drug discovery is immense. So, currently, what we are doing is with every class, starting right from the first semester to the highest class, that would be master's final year, we are putting a component of AI. When it is synthetic part, we teach them to design the drugs. When it is formulation part, we teach them to formulate the drug with the help of AI. Even the where we thought the application of AI would be very low, that is herbal drugs, there also we have certain very good applications. You can identify a plant, you can identify a drug, you can identify the phytochemicals that you get with the help of AI. And second question is, how can collaboration between academia and industry be beneficial? uh, this is actually going to be the mantra for success in the coming years. Without the support from industry, the academia cannot survive, and vice versa. The kind of depth the academia has, it is very rare to find that kind of depth in industry. And as far as the industry support is concerned, if we do not have any problems from industry, it is useless. If whatever I am doing is not useful to the society, it is of no use. It will just lie on the shelf. So I think the future of collaboration between academia and industry is the only possibility where the allied healthcare profession can thrive upon. I think I can take a take from Dr. Suresh Mani also, if this would be applicable to physiotherapy also. Dr. Suresh Mani.
Yes, ma'am, sir.
So, if we talk about AI, so artificial intelligence, in BSc and as well as master program, we offer artificial intelligence along with the advanced techniques in diagnostic. The second thing is we prepare the students for the industry. So definitely there should be a collaboration in between academia as well as the industry. And we prepare the student as per whatever the skills are required, artificial intelligence also, and whatever the other skills. As we all know, our student must have skill because our programs are practical based program. So we focus on advanced instrumentation, automation, and also we focus on research tools. Because if we talk about PG student, so we give inputs and trained them, what different research tool we use in research writing also. And we in collaboration with various industries to prepare the students, because definitely industry work for the society, as madam said. And we work with along with the industry, and inculcate all those skills which are required nowadays in the industry.
So I would like to add one more point here. I think when we the quality of any service, it depends on your assessment and also your monitoring, your management components. But when you talk about technology, particularly AI, it has given a wonderful tool for us to able to provide us kind of support to the clinicians to go for a better diagnosis. For example, somebody have a gait problem, so the technology is there, tell us, what is the deviation that they have. Otherwise, you need to spend hours to test, gate deviations. But technology-based AI technology is there to assess, tell us what is the gate deviation as soon as the patient get into our clinics or the hospitals. So similarly, when we monitor patients, for example, somebody taking undergone any surgery, so they are doing certain uh, post-operative protocol at home. So technology, AI-based technologies are available so that they can monitor their physical activity, their adherence to this particular exercise protocol, if possible through the technology. Yes, actually, the technologies had a very huge impact on our the way we deliver our therapies to our patients, as well as helps in our student as well to learn those skills so that they can impart those skills into their clinical practice. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Dr. Suresh Mani and Mr. Gurinder Singh, and our expert, Dr. Monica Gulati, also. So, someone is asking here, what is the scope of pharmacoeconomics and health policy for pharmacy students in India?
So pharmacoeconomics is basically, your ROI in medicine, in the line of medicine. It is the return on investment. So if we have two patients, it's something very simple. If we have two patients, one cannot afford, a lot of money to be spent on his or her treatment. The amount spent will be less, but the quality of life would also not be very good. There could be certain side effects, there could be certain discomfort. Parallelly, if there is someone who can afford costlier treatment, probably the life with the quality of life would be better. So basically, what is done in pharmacoeconomics is you compare one treatment vis-a-vis the other treatment in terms of the improvement in the symptoms and the side effects, the longevity that it can provide, and so on. So currently, looking at the consumerism which is there in the society, which is prevalent in the society, pharmacoeconomics is a very important part, and it is very pragmatic also. We should be able to deliver a treatment to all the people, irrespective of which part of the society they come from. So this is made very clear to the patient right at the beginning, that with this kind of therapy you will be getting this kind of side effects, you will be getting this pace of remediation and so on. So pharmacoeconomics is very important, and then it is very fortunate that in the recent times the pharmacy professionals have been given a right to have their say in the health policy also. If you are given a chance to affect the health policy of any country or the entire world, I feel one should feel very fortunate. And with the coming up of, rather I would say, the implementation of the maximum prices for the drugs, they're focusing on the off patenting of the patented drugs, which we could see during the recent COVID pandemic. The health policy becomes a very lucrative kind of, and very contributing kind of part of the profession of pharmacy. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Monica Gulati. Someone is asking here, can you shed light on entrepreneurship opportunities in the pharmaceutical and healthcare startup space?
Yeah, surely. So I think this question will be shared by all three of us, because the entrepreneurship opportunities will vary from pharmacy to diagnostics to clinical embryology to physiotherapy. And I would specially request Dr. Gurinder Singh to focus a little on clinical embryology also, as the scope of entrepreneurship is very high in that. So first I'll talk about pharmacy. The possibility of, or the scope of entrepreneurship in allied medical sciences has never been like it is in the current scenario. As I was sharing earlier, after COVID pandemic, the people have become very conscious about their health, about their lifestyle also. So food is one area, food or processed food or functional food is one area where a lot of pharmacists are entering as entrepreneurs, because the kind of knowledge they have about the diseases, a simple graduate in food processing or nutrition would not have that kind of grip on the disease process. So many of the young pharmacists are entering into the functional food area, apart from the conventional areas of manufacturing of drug, sales of drug. The when I say sales, the retail and the wholesale kind of business they already have. Apart from that, of course, the light will be shed more by Dr. Suresh Mani. The gymming kind of entrepreneurship is also now on the rise. We have seen some tragedies happening with some very young people, some from showbiz also, wherein people were in their doing their exercises in the gyms, and certain unfortunate incidences happened. After that, the gyms have made sure that they allow the exercises or gymming only under the expertise of some physiotherapists, so that these kind of things would not, unfortunate incidences would not happen. So over to the other two experts.
So, as ma'am mentioned, first I would like to highlight clinical embryology. This is a master program in which, after completion of this program, student would become embryologist. So yes, that student will work as a junior or senior embryologist, and nowadays the infertility is rising, because of life, not good lifestyle, and infertility. It's a challenge. Infertility is a challenge. It's a global challenge, and embryologists are not in India; they are demand globally. Now, the second thing, entrepreneurship. There is a main question is the entrepreneurship. So, in embryology, we offer a course, entrepreneurship, startup, and legal compliances in IVF. So first, in this, we give input to the student practically, so how they can open their own IVF center, how they recruit the staff, how they procure all the instruments to start their lab, to design the infrastructure, and HR, and how to recruit their staff, and also to find out the place and arrange the finance. So from A to G, we teach the students, to find out the place, to design the infrastructure, recruitment of the staff as a HR, and also arrange and procure the instrument, and what are the legal compliances also. On the same way, and we also talk about not only this, if a patient come in their IVF center, how we also develop their skills for infertility counseling, right? Even before the IVF, before the conduct of IVF, and after, if suppose a failure of the IVF, so how to counsel the patient, which is very very important component in the IVF centers. Apart from this, clinical embryology at a UG level, as well as other PG programs, we have this program, entrepreneurship started, and legal compliances, how to start their own biochemistry lab, microbiology lab, or a diagnostic lab on a parallel way. So this is about how we work on, and also we work on how to now during the program, how student will generate the revenue by use of all these skills, whatever I'm talking about and giving you the list. By use of all these skills, how within the campus during this program, student will generate the revenue, and also they produce their own healthcare products. And they learn practically. One is the theoretical, second is the practically, how to execute their plan and get revenue. Thank you.
Yeah, I would like to add a few more points as what sir and ma'am also added. When you talk about physiotherapy, it's commonly say that everyone needs physiotherapy. Even starting from the birth till he die, so he needs physiotherapy. So different phase, he needs physiotherapy because we are the technological era, so we get a lot of pain conditions. It's common for neck pain for everybody, and back pain is it's very common condition. So we need physiotherapy. Talk about and the startups or entrepreneurship in physiotherapy. It's not a new subject. We have been witnessing a lot of physiotherapists and started their own startup. They are very successful in their startup as well. And not only the general physiotherapy startup, there are specialty based physiotherapy practice or specialty based clinics or rehabilitation centers. For example, somebody started specific to neuro rehabilitations. Say only they treat a person with the neurological disorder, or even that is even super specialty. They only treat paraplegia or spinal cord injuries. Or some physiotherapy, they have a startup, they started only for stroke clinic. Somebody started with the pain, low back pain clinic. So very specialized entrepreneurs have been, startups are available in the field of physiotherapy. As Madam also said, the fitness industry. There are mishappenings everywhere. So they are appointed, physiotherapists. They have to do their, pre-exercise assessment. It's mandatory so that they can, able should not have any mishappening during their exercises. In addition to this, even governments has put up a lot of initiatives. Kelo India, so it's one of the initiatives where they the where the physiotherapist has been placed. So the opportunities everywhere, particularly entrepreneurships, it's very huge. We have a lot of success story. Even my own alumni recently visited. So he has got a he gave job for more than 35 physios under his clinics, under his chains of clinics. So this is it's very common in physiotherapy. I have a lot of chains of clinics and have a good startups and entrepreneurships aspect. I hope I answered this question from the physiotherapy point of view. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Suresh Mani and Mr. Gurinder Singh, and our expert, Dr. Monica Gulati. If you have any questions, you just write in the comment box, and I'll address the questions to our experts with us. So I'm going to end this session. So as we come to the end of this session, I want to express my deepest gratitude to our experts for sharing their valuable insights and expertise with us. Your presence, enthusiasm, and active participation have made this experience truly special. Hopefully, the attendees found this webinar to be valuable and will be able to utilize the information for better decision making regarding admissions. If anyone wants to assess this session again, they can visit our website, that is lpu.in, or can be assessed on YouTube also. Stay connected with us for future sessions. Until we meet again, with the permission of my seniors, I would be signing off this session. Take care and goodbye. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank
Yes,
you.
thank you.